Hello, class. Hope you're having a really good day. Welcome to our second YouTube video. Hope that this process and method is working for you. I find that having me kind of go over some of the information with you in your off time is preferable to having you all just go read the chapters and figure out a lot of it on your own. So if you're okay with that, keep going. If you're not, come talk to me. And we'll figure out what you're having issues with and maybe find some ways to adjust. So today we are going to actually start talking about you all giving speeches. So very exciting. Took us a week and a half to get to this point. I'm ready. Are you? All right, let's get going. So let me share my screen and we will jump right in. From current slide, please. So already, ta-da, presenting speeches. There are 4 parts to the speech building and delivering process. 4 parts are, and I have to let you know in advance, these aren't the parts of a speech, but this is the process by which you will build and give your speeches. Does that make sense? Okay, so the 4 parts are, first of all, you're going to choose your specific topic. And we're going to be talking a lot about that later on in this video. Next, you're going to be gathering and organizing all of your information, and that's going to comprise a great deal of what you present in your speech. Next, you're going to be practicing and rehearsing your speech, and yes, I do expect you all to practice your speech. And then finally, delivering your speech. So right now we are at the very first part of this process. We're going to be talking about choosing your specific topic. We say a specific topic because when we talk about a lot of topics, we tend to start thinking generally. And when you're trying to figure out what to say in a speech, the broader your topic is, the more difficult it's going to be for you to decide what to talk about. So let's see what I mean by that. First of all, we're going to be talking about taking your topic from a general topic to a specific topic, which is what we want to do. Things to think about include, what is the purpose of your speech? Is it informative? Is it entertainment? Is it a persuasive speech? Is it a commemoration speech? Then it's a good idea to start with things that you already know, things that you know something about, and you won't have to start from scratch with. Now, sometimes you'll be asked to give a speech and you won't be thinking from ground zero. But in this case, we're going to pretend like we're starting from ground zero and you have to build whatever kind of speech you'd like to give from step 1. So think about all the things that you know that you'd like to know more about or that you'd like to share with people. Then think about those things that you know and look at what you'd like to talk about. Next, think about what you want other people to feel or to do, how you want people to react after they hear what you're talking about. And then finally, you're going to take that general topic and narrow it down and keep narrowing it until it's super specific. And it's easy for you to tell which information goes into your speech and which information you're keeping out of your speech. Okay, make sense so far? Hope so. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee if you don't mind. Delightful. So when we're focusing a topic, let's start with an example, for example. Let's say I have to give an informative speech, such as you will have to do. So my purpose will be informative. I want to inform people of something. So let's start with what I know. I do know a lot about baking. I bake a lot, or at least I used to. Y'all may not believe this, but still about 2 years ago, I weighed 100 pounds more than I do now. I know, crazy. I used to bake a lot more, not so much these days, but now I bake more healthy. So I do know a lot about baking. But if I were to give a speech on baking, I mean, there are thousands of things I could think of to talk about with regard to baking. So let's narrow that down. What do I like with relation to baking? And I love to bake cookies. Cookies are amazing. I could eat a cookie every day, more than one actually, and have. So already we're narrowing things down from all the things that I feel like I could inform the world about to baking cookies. And trust me, we're not even close with narrowing yet. What do I want people after I give my speech to feel or to do? How do I want them to respond after they hear my speech that has something to do with baking cookies? I want people to think that baking cookies is fun. It might be something they might want to try to do. So I've gone through all those steps. Now, do you think I've gone far enough? The answer is no. And I hope you've said no. We have just started to focus. So let's narrow. Some of the topics I could think of off the top of my head include how to bake cookies from scratch, baking cookies for breakfast cookies, how to improve boxed cookie mixes. Oh, my famous double chocolate cookies. They are amazeballs. The history of baking cookies from other countries, not just American cookies, but from around the world. What are the basic tools for baking cookies? Who are some famous cookie bakers in history? Baking bar cookies like brownies versus drop cookies like chocolate chip cookies. Baking cookies as a tradition amongst families or amongst cultures. That's two ideas right there. Baking fancy cookies, with all different layers or different decorations, all sorts of things like that. What are some awesome cookie baking blogs that I think people should check out? How to bake cookies with your kids. What are some mistakes that people make when they're baking cookies? If you're a beginner, what are some things you should do when you're baking cookies? And how to mail baked cookies. Because with COVID nowadays, you can't just take people cookies. Sometimes you might have to mail them to people, and you might want to keep them fresh. So when they arrive, they're just delicious. What you need to do is really brainstorm all the possible topics and ideas that you have. So remember, we started with the broadest possible thing, an informative speech. From that, what do I know about baking? What do I like baking? I like baking cookies. And from there, I want people to have fun when they listen to my speech. I want them to think that baking cookies is fun. What are some things that I think would be fun to talk about with regard to baking cookies? All of these things I have thought of that I could give a narrow speech about. So now I have to pick one. There's an awful lot of things I could still talk about. I'm going to pick improving boxed cookie mix, because a lot of people like to go to the store, buy a box of cookie mix, and just add the egg and the milk or the water, mix it up, bake cookies, delicious cookies. How can you make them better? This way you're not starting from scratch. It saves you time, it saves you some money. You don't have to buy all the little ingredients. Just use a box cookie mix, and with a couple of interesting things, you improve them. So I think that's going to be somewhat focused on my talk of it. But I could even get narrower. And I know you're thinking to yourself, how could she get narrower? Well, let's brainstorm about improving boxed cookie mix. What are some of the things we can talk about? Well, what kind? Are there particular kind of mixes that are better than others? For example, brownies versus sugar cookies, or chocolate chip cookies versus peanut butter cookies. There are all sorts of different ways. Lemon bars versus brownies. You're going to get all sorts of different ideas depending upon the type of boxed cookie mix you're wanting to improve. So maybe I should split it up somehow and talk about how you can improve different types of cookie mixes depending upon what you want to do with them. What if I want to talk about how you improve boxed cookie mixes using just regular household ingredients that everybody has in their home? Maybe you have raisins, you have peanuts or nuts, you've got putting a little bit of extra butter or extra oil or extra milk in there, see what happens. So things that people might have in their cabinets already to improve a boxed cookie mix. But then on the flip side, how can I improve boxed cookie mixes by using unusual ingredients? So like, what if we use like dried fruits? Now, not raisins, because everybody thinks of raisins, but you know, things like prunes. You know, back in the day, the 1800s day, prunes were in everything, you know, dried plums. But you could also use dried apricots. There are some really fancy nuts that might be interesting to try, different flavorings. Ooh, rose water, orange water. You can really make some fascinating cookies and make things really taste different with some unusual ingredients. What else is there? Oh, things you have to think about when you're using mix-ins. You can't put too much of a mix-in because then your cookie sometimes loses its integrity. Or, you know, whether you're mixing in a dry ingredient versus a wet ingredient, there's a lot of things when you're just mixing in extra things to improve your cookie mix, you have to think about. So even with my narrowed topic about how to improve a box cookie mix, I've come up with 4 different options of things I could still narrow my topic down and then be happy to give a speech about. So looking at these 4 things, I think I'm going to pick, let's see. Oh, I can't believe I did this slide again. Can you? I'm going to pick that one, the improving the box cookie mix by using unusual ingredients. Why am I picking that? Well, I think there's a surprise factor. A lot of people might be surprised at some of the ideas I might have, and that might add to the whole fun of experimenting and trying new things. And that goes along with my purpose, how I want people to react. I want people to have fun and think about baking cookies themselves. And not only that, but the easy way to do it using improved box cookie mixes and unusual ingredients. So I've started super broad and I've narrowed my topic down. And even if I wanted to narrow it further, like let's pick an unusual ingredient, rose water. Go check out rose water flavoring. It's very interesting. A lot of Middle Eastern and Indian recipes, they love rose water. I could pick one and then just give a speech on that. But you know, I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to just, that's going to be my narrow topic. So did you understand the process? We went narrow and even more narrow and even more narrow. Now, what's the point of narrowing down? Well, as I'm trying to think about what to give my speech on and the information that should go into it, what should I talk about? You also have to know what not to talk about. So for example, if I'm talking about how to improve box cookie mixes using unusual ingredients, anything that has to do with a kind of typical ingredient like raisins, peanuts, I'm not going to put that in there. I have to focus on the unusual ingredients. And I probably don't want to talk too much about methods because that's not what this speech is about. My speech is about how to use unusual ingredients. Now, if I wanted to give a speech on methods that you have to use when using unusual ingredients in box cookie mixes, I could go that way, but that's a whole other speech. So when you start gathering the information and the materials you want to use to build up the body of your speech, having a very narrow focus, that narrow topic is a big help to letting you know what to include in your speech and what to leave out so that everything you mentioned in your speech is pertinent and specific and on point. All right, makes sense? I've been doing a lot of thumbs up lately, you know, in all these Teams and Zoom meetings and all the emojis, everyone's just doing thumbs up. So if you see me doing like this, it's not that I'm being weird about thumbs up, even though I kind of am. I'm just so used to doing this lately. So now that we have an idea of how to really focus our topic for our speeches, let's talk a little bit about how we're going to be organizing our speech. Now, this has to do with the parts of a speech that we were talking about earlier. So every speech has, sounds like this could be in relation to a test question coming up in the future. You know, these kind of things always pop up on tests at some point or another. Every speech has certain components, and they are, first of all, an introduction. An introduction has 2 main purposes. The first one is to get everybody's attention. Hey, I'm giving an interesting speech. And I'm going to make it so that even after you listen to this beginning part, you're going to want to keep listening all the way through to the end of my speech. The second thing it does, it lets people know what you're talking about. It gives the main idea, the thesis of your speech. So you're getting people's attention, and then you're saying, here's what I'm going to be talking about. What you're going to be talking about then comprises the body of the speech. Body has the information that you want to share. The thing is, the information needs to be organized in a way that your speech flows logically from one point to the next point to the next point, or however many points you're trying to talk about. Then finally, you have a conclusion. The conclusion has three purposes. The first one is it reinforces your thesis statement. In the beginning, remember you said, here's what I'm going to be saying. In the body of the speech, here's what I am saying. When you get to the conclusion, what I just said was, we're going to reinforce that thesis idea. Secondly, it tells people what to do next. If it's a persuasive speech, or for example, with my cookie idea, I could say at the end, if you enjoyed hearing about unusual ingredients that you can use to make really improved boxed cookies, I urge you to grab a box of cookie mix yourself and try them. So it lets people know how they can take action moving on, if it's informative or persuasive. And then it also lets people know you're done without actually coming out and saying, I'm done now. You have to end with a good concluding couple of sentences that let people know what I said is what I've said. I'm reminding you of what I said. Here's some things you can do. And now I'm done saying it. So introduction, body, and conclusion. And if you've written a paper before, you might notice some of these things are very similar. And writing a speech can be very similar to writing a report, a term paper, an essay. It will have much the same types of parts, but how we're going to build them can be a little bit different. All right, two different kinds of speeches that are given in general. Remember, I think I've already mentioned extemporaneous versus impromptu speeches, but we're going to go a little bit into that right now, just as a reminder. All of the speeches that we are going to be giving in our class are extemporaneous. Do you remember what that means? I think I remember saying that a lot of people get this backwards, that they think an extemporaneous speech is a spontaneous speech, something that you're asked to give just on the cuff. And that's actually not true. It's the opposite. An extemporaneous speech is presenting a practiced speech from research that has been prepared in an outline. So when you do all the thinking ahead of time, you do the research, you build the body of your speech, you develop the introduction and the conclusion, you make sure everything is organized well, and you practice it, and it's been put into an outline, you prepare it, and then you deliver it. That's an extemporaneous speech. Impromptu speaking, and the correct bit of that word that's going to help you remember what kind of speech is, this is prompt. Does that tell you? Impromptu speaking is giving a speech with little notice or preparation, basically off the top of one's head. So it might make you happy to know that most of the speaking, in fact, 99.9% of the speaking in our class is going to be extemporaneous. It's going to be prepared in advance, whether you're given a couple of days or a week or a couple of weeks to prepare, doing it in advance so you can develop the information in it, get it all outlined, give it a logical flow, make sure that you practice it, and then give it. That's an extemporaneous speech. We're not going to be, or at least, well, as of right now, I don't think I'm going to be asking you just to stand up in the moment and say, okay, give me 2 minutes on such and such. Right now, I'm not feeling it, but you never know. Maybe a little pop impromptu speech never hurt anybody. So when we're delivering an extemporaneous speech, it tends to be with expressive emotion and nonverbal communication. you need to seem interested in what you're talking about, because if you're not interested in it, why should your audience be interested in it? You want to have a positive vocal tone. You don't want to be monotone and sound. Remember some of the examples we looked at in that first day of class, where people, you could tell they weren't prepared. You could tell they didn't want to be there, had a very monotone or negative vocal tone. So that's the opposite of what we're wanting. You want a stance that reflects your purpose. So if you're doing an informative speech or persuasive speech, you want to make sure that your body language reflects that. If you're giving a commemorative speech, you probably don't want to be so dynamic. If you're remembering somebody or you're honoring someone, you probably want to be more refined. You want to use natural gestures. Now, you notice I use a lot, but I'm used to it. So don't feel like you have to make yourself move. You want to be natural about it. And if when you're talking, you just start moving your hands, that's perfectly great. Now, if you're using a visual aid, so like if I was doing a speech about my coffee, you do have to basically hold it up, but don't be like, unnatural, just natural. Hey, here it is. You want to give good eye contact with the members of your audience. And it's kind of unusual that the technique that a lot of folks who give a lot of speeches are taught to use is you start by looking in the middle of your audience. So let's say you've got people left, center, right, although you're looking left, center, right, probably. What you're going to do when you're giving eye contact is you're going to look center, then you're going to look at some people to the left, like you're talking to them. Then you're going to give some eye contact to the people to the right. Some people do that. Some people do center, left, back to center, to the right. So that you're always kind of doing a little bit. Now, you don't want to be like, like you're just moving and whatever, but just make it general. I'm saying this bit of speech, looking down at my notes. Oh, I'm going to speak to the people on the left here now, looking at my notes. Okay, that's where I am. Center people again, eye contact with one or two people there. Look down, see the right-hand people, a little bit of eye contact there, down, up. Sometimes if you watch people do the news, they're always looking straight at what seems to be the camera. Remember, we've talked about how that's a teleprompter, but then they'll kind of do this thing where they look at another camera and they'll look down at their notes to figure out where they are, and then they look up. Looking down to figure out where you are in your notes is perfectly legit. So if you look down, center, down, left, down, center. Now, not that fast. You want to give it a little bit of time and make it natural. When you practice, it really should be natural. So don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on who you're looking at. Just remember, we do want to see your eyes. The audience does want to see you looking at them and engaging with them. Probably spend a lot of time on that, but eye contact is kind of an important thing. If I'm doing my speech like this and I'm not ever looking up, it's unnerving after a while. So eye contact is really important. Finally, we need to get your nerves under control. And for your first speech, this might be hard. If you're not used to giving speeches or presentations, you might be nervous. Oh my gosh, what are people going to think after they see me with my speech? Am I prepared enough? Did I do enough stuff? What's my grade going to be like? You might be thinking all sorts of things. Just remember, no one in my class has ever died giving a speech. You're going to get through it. Everybody is starting from the same place. Everybody is feeling the same way. There is no reason to feel embarrassed or shocked or anything scary about the people that you're going to be speaking to. So breathe. Make sure you are prepared. Honestly, that's the best thing you can do to get your nerves under control, is to be so prepared that you're like, well, shoot, at least I know what I'm going to say in my speech. So I don't have to worry about that. I just have to worry about how I'm going to deliver it. And that's half the battle taken care of. Phew. Well, that wasn't so long of a class, was it? We've reached the remote assignment portion of our video. We've got 2 that are going to be due Sunday night at 11:59. And these both refer back to things that we've been talking about in previous classes. I just want to do a little bit of review and make sure that moving forward, we're all in the same place. So we're going to do the remote assignment related to public speaking opportunities. And this one, I want you to create a list of 7, yes, 7 situations in your own life where you could give a public speech. I know we've already looked at times when you did give a public speech, but this time I want you to think about going forward in your future life. What are 7 situations, kind of places, events where you could give a speech in public? Why 7? Well, it's a good number. It's more than 4, which I don't think is enough, and it's less than 10, which I think is too much. For each one of these 7 situations, there's 4 things I want you to list, so 28 total. For each one, give what your message would be, needs to be a good sentence, who your listener or audience would be, what the situation would be, and remember, details. Details are important. And then what sorts of interference could you expect, both external from outside of the situation and internal, the things you might be thinking about or going on within your brain and your body that could be a problem. Now, why are we doing this? Well, knowing sometimes that you do have events going on in the future where you could give a speech, some of the speeches that you're going to be giving in class, you might be thinking, well, you know, I do know that we're going to be celebrating my great-grandfather's 90th birthday coming up later this summer. We have to give a commemorative speech, or I could give a commemorative speech at that event. We have a commemorative speech in our class. Hey, this is an event where I have a public speaking opportunity. I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by developing that speech here. And we're already going to start prepping for it. Now, there might not be an event that you know about coming up, but there could be. So that's what we're going to start working on. Places in public where you could give. Now, don't make like one class and then my chemistry class and then I have my math class. No, 1 class is enough. Then you need 6 other instances. So think of 6 places. Now, remember, they don't have to be super big speeches, but you're going to be doing public speaking to some sort of group. As previously, you're going to put it in a Word document. The top left, you're going to put your name, the class, the date, submit by Sunday night at 11:59. Got it? Take a picture of the page here. All right, so we have another assignment. This one is a little tougher. And luckily, it's not as numerous of the points that I want you to think out, but you're going to have to do a little bit of research. This remote assignment involves, let me see if I can't move me. There I am. Ethical and non-ethical public speaking examples. Remember in our class this past Tuesday, we talk about ethical and non-ethical speaking. I want you to go onto the internet. It can be any kind of site or place that has video. And I want you to find 1 example of someone who's giving what you consider to be an ethical public speech. And then 1 example of someone giving a non-ethical public speech. In another Word document, and don't put that with the Word document that in the other remote assignment. These need to be 2 separate Word documents. I want you to write down the person who's giving the speech and put the link to the page, to the video, so I can take a look at it. So I can see, okay, it's this guy giving this speech. And then I want you to write down, explain why you think this speech is ethical or non-ethical. So you write, I believe that this person is giving an ethical speech because, and see these little 5 things, I want you to explain these things and how that makes them either non-ethical or ethical. So what was the goal that they had when they were giving the speech? How can you tell? You have to listen to it. What was the information that was presented? Was it ethically sound? How did their delivery contribute to the ethics of their case? How did it reflect the ethical or non-ethical quality of the speech? How did their use of language, the words that they used and how they said them, how did that contribute to the ethics of their case? And was the speaker successful, do you think, at making their case for whatever they were talking about, whether it was ethical or non-ethical? So you're going to have 2 points. You're going to have a name with the web link, and then you're going to explain those little 5 arrowed bits down there. So not as numerous of stuff you're going to be writing down as in that previous assignment, but you are going to have to look up some things and think and go, is this ethical or non-ethical? Honestly, I'll give you a hint. Persuasive speeches, political speeches can be the best sources of finding ethical versus non-ethical public speaking. If someone is a business owner and they're trying to get you to buy their product or to use their service or to be interested in what they're doing, what their service or their product is, it could be ethical, it could be non-ethical. It doesn't, whether or not they're a business person or a politician doesn't make them ethical or non-ethical. It's what they're saying and how they're saying it. Does that make sense? Okay, so once again, put in a Word document, put your name, class, the date, submit by Sunday night at 11:59. So we're on our way to start really working on giving speeches. Exciting, isn't it? That's why we're all here. I hope you're looking forward to it. Don't forget to do your homework, and I will see you then in class again on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you then.